Hello, this is Sam Stone.
And David J. Howe, and you're listening to Mark Who 42.
Welcome to Mark Who 42. Hi, I'm Mark Baumgarten. You're listening to the best science fiction podcast this side of, let's say Gallifrey, just for shorthand. With me is co-host
Juan Sanmiguel in Orlando.
Hey Juan, how's it going?
Yeah, pretty good. Just came back last week. I did panels at Anime Festival Orlando, aka AFO, which is the biggest fan-run anime convention in Orlando, probably in Central Florida right now. So it was great fun seeing some friends. My housemate also did a few very good panels. So that was fun.
Was there a big turnout?
Yeah, it was good numbers. I mean, it was comfortable numbers. I mean, at least as far as I could tell. I mean, it was I mean, they've used the new hotel. I mean, I guess Holiday Matsuri might be slightly bigger because right now they have to use the convention center, although because of just scheduling reasons, I couldn't get there last holiday because it was literally too close to Christmas.
Right.
But no, it's a reasonably sized convention. It's fitting its hotel.
So we're doing an interview today, folks. A great interview. Juan, tell us about who you're going to be interviewing.
Okay, we're going to be interviewing Jose Pablo Iriarte, or Joe Iriarte. They're an established science fiction fantasy writer, I should say, and they've been publishing quite a while, and they've actually made the award lists. I've known them for a couple of years. They reside in Central Florida, and we grew up in South Florida together. He went to one school, and I went to another school. So we didn't talk about schools, although.
Mm-hmm.
But we do talk about growing up because a lot of his work does take place in Central Florida. And like I said in the interview, you can feel the humidity of it, including his upcoming book, AJ Torres and the Treasure of Captain Grayshark, which just came out very shortly at the time of recording.
We're going to go for a commercial break. When we come back, Juan is going to interview Jose right after this.
Don't go away. We'll be back with more Mark Who 42 after this.
Get ready for the ultimate geek experience right here in the Sunshine State. Florida Geek Scene presents a full calendar of events and conventions. From anime to horror, we've got it all. Meet your favorite stars, find rare collectibles, and immerse yourself in your passion. Experience the thrill of cosplay and witness amazing live performances. Stay up to date with the latest news and reviews all across Florida. Florida Geek Scene, where pop culture happens. Visit us online for more. Don't miss out on the fun. Join us at Florida Geek Scene, floridageekscene.com.
The Pullbag is GCRN's comic book review and discussion-based podcast. Join me, TFG and Mike, and the rest of the GCRN crew as we discuss the comics we are reading right now. Inside the Pullbag, you'll also find the origins of how guests got into or out of reading comics, after dark discussions, and so much more. You can find the Pullbag every Wednesday, which is New Comic Book Day, only on geekcastradio.com and on anywhere you consume your podcasts. Make your great escape into comics and jump into the Pullbag today.
You are listening to Mark Who 42's Universe.
Hello, this is Juan Sanmiguel for Mark Who 42, and today we're going to be doing a little something different. As you heard future Juan and future Mark say, got an interview with Jose Pablo Iriarte. They've been publishing science fiction for quite a while right now, and actually they've got a novel out, which we'll talk about we'll talk about later. But at the same time, he has been a finalist for the Nebula, the James Triptree the Hugo, and recently the Ignyte, and I believe also the Sturgeon. Jose, is there anything I forgot about to mention?
The Locust. I'm trying to think about what else. I think that's pretty much. You think you covered it.
Now, full disclosure, we both grew up in different parts of South Florida. I always say I grew up in the burbs of West State, I should say.
hmm
In fact, I got a question for you when we get to talking about your short fiction, which I hope I don't forget. What part of South Florida did you grow in? I think I think you, and I apologize if you told me, but for some reason I have only a vague recollection of it. If you did.
Well, we basically spent my youth moving further southwest. So my parents' first apartment was in the Lejeune area, kind of Little Havana, and and then by the time I was in my 20s, we were in the hammocks, so way out west.
Oh, did you ever go to West Kendall Library? I had to work there one day because they were short of people, and they.
Is that the one that was on like 107th Street or thereabouts?
Yeah, when we were growing up, it was one of the newer libraries. I mean, it
Yeah.
was just built to supplement because I guess the population grew.
Yeah, my
in West.
library, most, as an adolescent was West State Regional, I want to say it
Oh my
was.
God, we must have bumped into each other. I used
Yeah,
to hang
yeah.
out there. You didn't see an annoying short Colombian, who was probably annoying people
I
and young adult section.
I failed to ask everybody where they were from. Yeah.
No, I mean, if you were in if you were in the hammocks or even in Little Havana, that was a big
Mhm.
drive. I mean, I thought the downtown. I always keep mistaking where Little Havana is at. I always keep thinking it's near downtown.
Well, I
Am I
mean, it
wrong
is
about
because it's
that?
off of Flagler, but it's west of downtown, right? So
Okay.
I would say Flagler to 8th Street, or maybe even North 8th Street to South 8th Street, is what I would kind of classify as Little Havana area. And then pretty far east, but not actually in downtown, right?
Yeah.
I want to say that the Orange Bowl was somewhere in the ballpark of maybe like I don't know, 10th Avenue, give or take 3 blocks. So kind of in that area.
Okay. So why'd you go to West State so far, or did you move already to the hammocks by the
Well,
time you would have been in high school?
so we moved to the hammocks when I was 15, but I don't think that South Dade Regional, that Kendall Regional one existed yet.
No, probably didn't. If you were 15, I think it was finished because I worked at that library when I was an undergrad. Now I know at that point you probably because I know where your school was, or roughly,
mm,
you went to Barry, I went to FIU.
mm.
Um,
Well,
so
and so for
yeah.
high school, I went to Beleng, and West Dade Regional was the big library. If I wanted to get together with any of my classmates and study or whatever, that was the big library that was convenient to them.
Now this gets into what I want to talk about your science fiction origin story, because that West State Regional Library was the home place of TARDIS Repair Incorporated, a Doctor Who club that was founded. I was one of the founding members, or at least one of the first people to show up, and that'll make our lead host Mark happy that I brought it up.
Mhm.
So, what got you started into the field?
Well, as a kid, I think I always liked stories about space and astronauts and things like that. But as I started to read, remember middle grade and young adult didn't really exist then in quite the way that they do now. And the first novels that I read were, I guess, action books, just contemporary action. And I remember I was in a BJ's wholesale club, and they had a book, a bunch of books in a box, they were selling for, half off or whatever. And I stumbled across a Robert Heinlein book, and I had never read anything by him before. This was one of his late kind of weird ones. It was Job, A Comedy of Justice. And I'm just kind of flipping through it and looking at the label science fiction. I was like, I used to like, and I like that kind of movie. I like Star Trek and Star Wars. So maybe I should give this a try. And it was certainly not anything like Star Wars, but it was mind expanding in all the ways that were pretty cool to me, excuse me, as an adolescent. And I think I'd pretty much never looked back from there.
Yeah, I think when we were teens, I mean, that was still recently a new book
Yeah,
of
yeah.
him, and a lot of people felt that was putting in the science fiction context. he had come back into form. A lot of people, and also it was a very I'd like to think subversive book, because I think some people pointed out that Heinlein hated organized religion, and that book was a full manifestation of it. I mean, it's actually, I mean, it is more fantasy, but obviously it's talking about afterlife and stuff like that. And some people
Yeah.
felt it that late era. It was one of the best books of late era Heinlein. So it's that was a that was a super great book to start out with. Although I've
Yeah.
worked my way through the Hugo list. Um,
I did a pretty deep dive on all the Heinlein I could find, and then somewhere not too long after that, I discovered Orson Scott Card and became kind of a completionist. I know, I know the elephant in the room, but as an adolescent, his writing had a big impact on me.
yeah, I mean, I'm not. Please don't get me wrong. I'm putting you down. For me, the elephant in the room was I don't know if you remember Norman Spinrad. He used to write. I mean, he was a big writer in his own right, but he did a review column in Asimov's, which I was reading in my teens, and he just completely trashed Ender's Game and explained,
Uh,
you know, why he felt that it was. He felt it could have been a more ambitious novel, and he, you know, knew it was a setup for Speaker for the Dead, but at the same time, because of that, I put off reading it for literally 20 years, and then when I finally read it, I goes, Spinrad is right, but at the same time, there is something substantial to this book, and I think it'll tie in later, because as we're going to talk about, you know, you've been working in YA. I mean, that
mm.
is, you know, I believe it actually was. I forget how old Ender is at the start of this. It actually might be
I
middle
think Ender
school.
is like 7 at the start of it. And I know that it went through a period of time where they were shelving it in YA sections when YA became big in terms of categories. But I would definitely argue that the book is not in any way, shape, or form YA, and it's just they were trying to cash in. But for all of the flaws that Orson Scott Card has, for and I think our generation was primed. If you were an adolescent who was, smarter than average and felt misunderstood or felt bullied for that, then here was a book that would say to you, no, no, there's nothing wrong with you. You're fantastic, and it's everybody else who can't understand you. So that was a lonely, smart adolescence. I can't think of the way to put it, but a book, a validation, so I think that book spoke to a lot of sci-fi readers of my generation.
No, and I get that. I think I got that through reading Harlan Ellison. I discovered, and I don't know how much Harlan Ellison you've read, but he's very angry at the world at the time, and he's also saying the same thing, but more probably, hey, if you're a weird adult, you should, hey, it's okay. And then if you ever read my
Yeah.
quote in my email, that's when he
hmm
again, to be fair, he was cashing in on the YA thing, and he published a bunch of stuff which I guess could be classified as YA, and he wrote that quote to inspire young people. It's funny we talk about that YA wasn't a category, because as I said, West State Regional Library, I was a patron there and eventually worked there through my undergrad. Um, and they had a YA section. In fact, I took over shelving it, and the guy who I worked for at the time, that librarian, let me have some fun organizing the shelves. Like, I'd put all the Fear Street in a place, because that circulated a lot, so that freed up some more space. Like, I could put it on a display, which freed up some space somewhere else.
Well, but Fear Street came out well
In the
after our
90s.
adolescence.
Yeah, in the 90s.
Yeah, and that's when YA was emerging. I feel like the market hadn't yet settled on what it referred to. So I think it was for anything for readers who were in between chapter books and adult books. Whereas now we've got middle grade and young adult, and now we also have like early middle grade and late middle grade, and even some people, even new adult. I'll go ahead and throw that into the mix as well. But yeah, I feel like it was just emerging for real in the 90s, and even then, not necessarily universal agreement on what it meant.
No, excellent. So hey, I wanted to prepare. There were a couple of books and a couple of stories in your short fiction I wanted to refer to, and I just wanted to have So according to your wiki, you got rejected at 13. I mean, you got
Yeah.
to tell me that story.
So it was actually not for a story. It was actually for an article on battle tactics for Star Frontiers that I sent to Dragon Magazine and got a revise and resubmit from Roger Moore, the editor back then. And I felt very excited. I thought, holy crap, I'm going to sell something. I'm 13. And I did revise it. And so the first letter I got back, I think maybe he was conscious of the fact that I was young. And so he was treating me kind of with kid gloves. But on the resubmit, there was no encouragement. There was just kind of, yeah, this is not a thing that we're looking for. So I didn't really follow up on that. But then that was my first experience of printing something out and taking a self-addressed stamped envelope and sending them off to a magazine and waiting to be told no. And that's a thing that I then spent a lot of years doing. My first short stories that I actually sent out to magazines, I would say, were when I was 17 or 18 years old. And again, the usual.
I got to ask you because of our age. Did you do that first submission on a typewriter, or did you have access to an early word processor in those days?
I had earlier access to a word processor than most because my parents were computer science professors. But I don't. I think that it must, because we're talking 1985, and I suspect I typed it.
Okay, no, I think like you, I think I was an early adopter. I think by 1986 I had an old Apple clone, so that's why I was wondering about that. And I really got to admire the old writers because, I can't imagine doing a large article or something on typing and having to revise. I mean,
Yeah,
I got to give credit to those guys.
The funny thing about that, my typewriter was a manual typewriter, and so you can still. I'm 53 now, and you can still tell if you listen to me on my laptop typing away, because man, I hammer those keys. On the laptop of mine that just died, I had two different keys that were broken, and when I learned to play piano, my piano teacher was also teaching the girl I was dating at the time piano, and they apparently had a conversation about, like, have you ever heard Joe play? Oh my goodness, Joe is loud. And I think this is why, though. It's because of the manual typewriter.
I got to ask you because we were in Chicago at the same time for Worldcon. Did you go to the Writers Museum that was literally around the corner?
I didn't. I was that's a frustrating thing about a lot of this travel is and especially just the way my schedule is. I think Worldcon, I had to take maybe some days off from school, where I'm a teacher, and our budget has been really tight for the last few years. So it was kind of a show up and try to not go broke while paying for this hotel and stuff. So we didn't really get to do much.
No, I get it. No, the reason I brought it up is one of the things they have an exhibit are a couple of manual typewriters. And again, I'm a big Harlan Ellison fan. So I found an Olympia, and I just took a piece of paper and tied the quick brown fox, jumped over to Lazy Dog, and just trumped a few words about my feelings about Harlan and saved the paper, and it's posted on my wall somewhere. So I just want to know if you had that, if you went back, if you would you have tried typing up something just for fun if you had time or had the experience?
I don't know, because for instance, for some weird reason, we love escape rooms, and there's a fair number of writer themed escape rooms, and we find old mechanical typewriters in a fair number of these, and sometimes they work clues into them. So I feel like I still run into them with some frequency.
Okay. Hey, so of course, now, as I understand your career, then you went into short fiction. I recently re-listened to Yukon Dominoes, and it's just one of the things about your work, and you keep doing it whenever you do it. You feel South Florida. You feel Florida. I mean, and I say this sincerely, and it's not a dig. I feel the humidity when I'm reading, and I'm looking at your chronology, and that was like your second published story. So I mean, and it's about somebody trying to get away from Miami, or at least that's one of the themes of it.
Yeah, yeah.
was the fantastic part the fact that they brought a piece of Cuba and they buried it at the apartment complex that they lived in. You know, they have a tie with Cuba, and that's why
And
everybody comes back.
the idea that there was a pole that you could not leave and stay gone. There was a little bit of Hotel California in that story. You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave. And yeah, it was very a lot. My earliest stories in particular, but really a lot of my stories were often characterized by reviews where people would go, "Is this actually spec fic?" And then people would have a whole argument about whether or not it really was spec fic.
Oh yeah, yeah. And for those of you who are listening, that was Yukon Dominoes. You can get that at Strange Horizons. The only thing is, go to Podbay. I don't know if I should email Strange Horizons. Unfortunately, the link to the podcast where they recorded the story wasn't working, but so I had to go through to alternate measures. But you can still get it. I
Yeah,
also listen.
about 5 or 6 years ago, they redid all of their URLs, and I recently was sharing Life in Stone, Glass, and Plastic with I don't remember. Oh, with Edie Bell's Kickstarter readers, and I struggled to find a working link. It's all in there. Like they haven't deleted anything. What I finally ended up doing was doing an advanced Google search at that URL for my story, and I was able to find it that way. But yeah, all the links are broken now.
Yeah, if you want to take a look for early Strange Horizons, just go to Podbay. I forget. Look up Podbay and then go to Strange Horizons. And actually, they've got a sub search. They've got a search for like podcasts in general. And then when you find your podcast, make sure you're in the right window, and then you can search. And I found because I also listened. I also listened to your second story there. Yeah, Life in Stone, Glass, and Plastic. And that's the one I wanted to ask you because I thought you mentioned Westchester in that one. I mean, did you really set part of that in Westchester? Oh, well, no. They talked about the Westchester building. Was that a real building, or did you make that up? I mean,
No, the setting in Life in Stone, Glass, and Plastic is completely unspecified. In my mind, it's more of a northeastern city.
oh,
So
really? Okay.
yeah, so I probably just named it the Westchester Building as kind of an homage, though, to my childhood in Miami.
Did you ever go to the Westchester theater, movie theater?
I
It was on
must
Coral
have.
Way in '87.
I'm sure that I'm sure that I did. I must
Okay.
have.
No, I just want the reason I bring that up is sadly it's either a Ross or it's a closing store
Oh
now.
no.
Well, yeah, no. I mean, the thing is, I reflected that all of the movie theaters where I saw the original Star Wars trilogy are gone. They moved on. I mean, they're new theaters. They're new Regals, which and I love the Regal Theater.
Mhm.
That was pretty good. You know, that's
I
pretty
saw
good.
Star Wars at the Miracle Theater on Miracle Mile in Coral Gables, and last I checked, it's a playhouse, but it's still a theater.
Okay. No, I think. Oh God, I might be wrong. I think I might have seen 2001 with my big brother at a midnight show.
Mhm.
Uh, because I
That
think it
was
was
a
in Coral
beautiful
Gables.
theater. Yeah, it was a beautiful theater. It had a balcony. I mean, it was something out of a different era even then, you know?
Yeah, I'd like to think that's where I saw it. I just remember that I saw that movie in Coral Gables, way back. Actually, did you catch it? Did you catch 2001 at a midnight show in those days? I mean,
No, I saw 2001 at home on my TV.
oh God,
Yeah.
on Channel 6 when they had a Mark is also local. Mark, who's our leader and who's going to be
Mhm.
editing this. Yeah, Channel 6 did that mega thing where they threw in a bunch of commercials and strung it out for 3 hours.
Hmm.
And my dad thought it was boring, or at least when they're trying to Hal is trying to kill Frank,
Yeah.
and Dave is trying to recover him. He just thought it was too slow for him. The substance of my lives and the accents of my birth. Again, you're you're dealing with some interesting issues, and also obviously a mystery and concept of retribution. But again, I remember listening to it. I was on my way joining my friends for a pun slingers, which is a punning competition. So I'm walking around downtown listening to this on my headphones. I go, wow, it just really feels like you're walking around that area. And
Mhm.
was that a specific area? I mean, I'm trying to remember where it was set in.
It was not named. It was basically kind of rural-ish, central Florida. In my mind, it was kind of the Sebring area, maybe a little bit north of Sebring, Haines City, and in between there.
Okay, I thought it was actually somewhere in South Florida, but that's okay. I mean,
Mhm.
there's there's a general Florida feel
Yeah.
And then we were Proof by Induction, which is kind of, I kind of could get into it because I was really into it because my dad had just passed 2 years after. So I was kind of connecting with, contacting your father through a virtual reality program based on how they were. And I could see why that got you like some really good notice on it. It was just a terrific story. Both The Substance of My Lives, The Accents on My Birth are available online. You can find Substance on Lightspeed magazine if you do a search there, and Proof by Induction is on Uncanny magazine, which is right now the 1,000-pound gorilla in magazines. I mean, I don't know if you noticed it when we were growing up. Asimov's was the big. Did you ever try to sell to them?
Yeah.
When you were
Oh
a
yeah.
teen?
Absolutely. I mean, because that's the thing. Back in the late '80s, there were 3 magazines, and then you were done, right? So I definitely tried to sell to fantasy and science fiction and Asimov's. My work didn't really tend to line up very well with what Analog wanted. And to be honest, it didn't line up that well with Asimov's because I tend to write fantasy more than science fiction, but they do take a little bit of fantasy.
Oh yeah, I mean, I was reading Asimov in the '80s, and they would do a
Yeah.
fantasy story.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think they did a lot of medieval. And
Right.
at that time in the '80s, Eddings was big, and there was a lot of big sprawling
I felt
fantasies
close
at that
enough
time.
to what they did to attempt to sell them stuff. I didn't actually succeed in selling them anything, but
Did you get a letter from Gardner? Who had been
is it
editing?
oh, for sure, form letters, and then I'm trying to remember. I think it was FNSF had the checklist letter rejection.
No, that sounds right. I think I saw a picture of that one time.
Yeah, I got that. And then a little bit later on, but Realms of Fantasy had different color rejection slips that you would get. And if your rejection came on a yellow slip of paper, then you knew that you had gotten kind of close. It was the yellow form rejection of promise, is what people informally referred to it as.
Now that was in the '90s. I mean, did you find that out
Yeah.
online in the nascent
Yeah.
internet at that? Wow.
Yeah. I was like, oh, cool then.
A few years ago, I mean, oh God, it was last year. For some reason I thought it might have been in 2023. You published Benny Ramírez and the Nearly Departed, and so was it a conscious that you wanted to go YA or middle grade, or was it just that you were shopping around and this is what people interest? How did you get into the middle grade?
So if you look at my
market?
short fiction, you'll notice that it has teen protagonists more often than not. And
Okay.
that's just something that, again, the influence of Orson Scott Card's writing, and Anne McCaffrey did a lot also with younger protagonists, and a lot of the people that I grew up reading, it just seemed very natural. Like I wasn't consciously trying to write young adult. And when I finished my first novel manuscript, everybody said, "Oh, you're a young adult writer," and I was like, "Oh, okay." So with the short fiction, there aren't really young adult markets that you send your stories to. I mean, someone's going to point out the existence of one or two, but that's it. But you can sell a story with a teenage protagonist. I mean, if you look at Substance of My Lives, The Accidents of Our Births, that is a young adult story, no question,
Exactly.
and if you look at Yucca and Dominoes, that's a young adult story also. Although I guess it ends when the protagonist is a little bit older than young adult, but still, that's it fits, I think, within young adults. So it's always been. Remember, I'm a teacher by day, and so it's always been natural to me to write about adolescence, and but young adult novels. And this isn't as true. What I'm about to say isn't as true as it was 15 years ago, but there's still truth to it. There's a pretty heavy pressure when you write young adult to include a romantic plot line. And it isn't my strength. It isn't my wheelhouse. So I've written a lot of books or stories where the protagonist is just a little bit younger than someone who's looking for romance yet, a 14-year-old protagonist, which is a very difficult age to sell. And so it wasn't that big a hop from my young adult space to maybe an upper middle grade space. And then I could write about my kids and not have to come up with romantic entanglements for them.
Yeah, no, I was thinking about that. I remember there was a young adult novel which was pretty popular in the 80s, and it's called The Silver Kiss. I don't know if you ever heard of it. I can't
Mm-mm.
remember who wrote it. And there is definitely a romance. I mean, it's essentially prototype Angel and Buffy's story, essentially, for
Mm-hmm.
all. Except they're not. She's not trying to kill him all the time. And I'm just looking at right now. I'm reading the Lodestar nominees, and I think I've only gotten a chance to read one of them. But I think about the past ones. There is always, if not a straight out romance, it's
Yeah.
there's definitely romantic tension. I mean, the only
Well,
one
and
I
I mean, this is one of the things that when you are a teenager, one of the things that might be on that list of new experiences, and that very commonly is. And so it makes sense that it's there. And don't get me wrong, I do enjoy what's called within the romance category sweet romance, which is basically um, courtship and not really about physical anything other than maybe kissing. I do enjoy reading and writing stories like that, and so some of my stories do include a thread of that. Um, but the older I get, the weirder it starts to feel for, somebody in my 50s to be writing about teenagers having physical moments. And so that's just not something I feel terribly comfortable writing.
Okay. But then again, that comes in, what are the boundaries of middle grade and compared to YA? I mean, what can't you do or what shouldn't you do? I mean, did you get stuff from the editor? Oh, take this out. That doesn't, this doesn't work for middle grade.
No, I don't really recall getting any pushback. I think it was kind of pretty naturally where I was. I want to say you're not going to see romance because it's also just not the portion of life where those kids are. You might see some early romantic attraction. You might see something that culminates in hand holding or culminates in, a chaste kiss or something like that. In terms of language, you're not in middle grade going to see language rougher than crap. You're not going to see four-letter words, kind of those classic ones, whereas you will see that in you can see that in young adult. You can see a lot more physicality in young adult, but it's also the bigger difference is about the themes. Young adult themes are themes of independence and who am I if you take away the backdrop of everything that has molded me? Who am I when I'm not with my family? Who am I when I'm not under the direction of my school or my church? And middle grade is more about how do I fit into these groups? So, what is the nature of the relationship between me and my family? So, we still have the same pressure to make sure that it's the kids who are solving their own problems and not their parents stepping in. So you've got to create that separation so that your kids can protag. For instance, in AJ Torres and the Treasure of Captain Grayshark, man, those kids have a freedom of movement that I absolutely did not have when I was their age, so that they can protag, so they can do things. But on the other hand, we don't have the killed off parent. The parents are still there. They're part of the story, and that relationship is a relation. And that's very foremost in Benny Ramírez and the Nearly Departed. Those family relationships are at the core of that story.
Bringing up Benny, there was one thing that you talked about. Now, yesterday you had your book launch, and I was there. I didn't realize where you set Benny because for some reason I thought Benny's grandfather's place is in the Gables, but you said it was in the Hammocks area.
No, I did not.
Oh, okay. No, I got confused. I thought you said that you set I thought yesterday you said you set Benny in the Hammocks. So where did I get confused?
No, I set Benny
not
kind
the
of
Hammocks in Cutler.
Oh, well, Old Cutler, kind of that Gables by the Sea area. So not classic inland Coral Gables, but down by the water. Because remember, Ignacio's mansion is practically coastal.
Okay. I missed that. And the thing is, when I think of Old Cutler, I think of Old Cutler Road, which is near where my brother lives.
Mhm.
He lives on Faranjo. I don't know if that means anything.
So you're talking further south. Frangel's
Yeah.
practically to Homestead, Florida City, and all that.
Yeah,
No,
it's
this was
borderline with that.
yeah. This is more like where Parrot Jungle used to be when we were
yeah.
kids. That's the area.
Which I think, did they ever rebuild it after Andrew?
Well, it had moved to an island, and I think I want to say that it still exists, but it's not exactly open to the public. It's more of a sanctuary now, and I could be wrong. But it's also like off of like Watson Island and all that.
Benny was a great novel. I was a really
Thank
big
you.
fan of your linking character, which you'll link with AJ Torres, Andrea.
Mhm.
And you talked about the fact that she gets a lot of things wrong, but one of the things I did like about her was, unlike unfortunately some people in public life right now, she doesn't double down. It seems
Yeah.
like she did process the information that says, no, you're wrong, and she goes, oh, okay, and then she works with that and tries become. And now yesterday you said that she's going to obviously be in the second book, and she's got a great arc, so I'm kind of looking forward to checking that out, because to me she was the breakout character in the first book.
She was a lot of fun to write. She's a great character. I think what you're talking about, there's a difference between people who want to, she is genuinely passionate about ghosts. And so learning is more important to her than preserving some illusion of, being the most knowledgeable person or something like that. So I think that's why when faced with new evidence, she's not going to double down, because she'd actually rather be right than convince people that she's right.
And so we get to talking about AJ Torres and the Treasure of Captain Grayshark, which just came out this week. What can you tell us about it?
So it features different kids who attend the same school. Benny and Benny Ramírez and the Nearly Departed is a new student at a performing arts magnet school that I completely made up in South Miami Performing Arts School, I think. And so this was a way to tie the books together without making it a direct sequel. I'm not very good at direct sequels, and I also felt like Benny's story was done. I didn't know where to go from there. So this gives me a chance to put somebody new on the stage and figure out a way to have them have ghost experiences. And then it would be kind of weird in that Murder, She Wrote kind of way if all of these kids at this school are all having ghostly experiences, except I think the character of Andrea helps with that, because then I think the way you could tie it together is you say, well, ghosts exist and they're all over the place, just most people aren't attuned to them. But here is this kid who is attuned to them and is going to help you. So AJ is, I guess, a little bit younger than Benny, because Benny's already had his adventure, and his best friend, the next door neighbor, Jaden, might be needing to move away because his mom's having a hard time finding work. Benny was a pretty privileged kid. His family was well off before they ever moved to Miami, and then they moved into his grandfather's mansion. So, they had it nice. And with AJ and Jaden, I get to explore something a little bit closer to my own financial state when I was a kid in Miami. I spent about half of my childhood at my grandmother's apartment, which was within walking distance of the Orange Bowl. And AJ lives within walking distance of the Marlin Stadium, whatever they're calling it these days. And just like a lot of people around the Orange Bowl used to do, his family makes a little bit of side money by renting out their yard when there's games to people who want to park and things like that. So I got to explore that little Havana area, and also the beach, which doesn't really factor into Benny Ramírez and the Nearly Departed. And there is a hurricane very early on in the second chapter or so of the book that hits Miami, does a little bit of damage, nothing too earth-shattering, but it turns up a lot of things like hurricanes do. It turns over a lot of sand, knocks down a lot of trees, and unearths things. And Benny and Jaden are, looking around at the destruction such as it is, and they find a gold doubloon that they believe is part of the lost treasure of Captain Grayshark. And they think that maybe having found this, where there's one gold coin, there might be more, that they can try to reverse engineer and figure out where the rest of that treasure is. And if they find it, hey, all of their problems may be solved.
I look forward to checking it out when I get the time. Unfortunately, I got to read a bunch of other Lodestar Awards so I can make an educated vote.
I know what that's like. Yeah, it's been hard the last couple of years to direct my own reading, because I have wanted to read the books that my 2024 debut cohorts mates had out, and then I wanted to read the Norton finalists. So yeah, I have spent a year feeling like everything I was reading was already kind of pre-chosen for me.
No, I get it. I mean, and also I missed one of the cool things you used to do on
Yeah.
the social media was give your short fiction recommendations, which I always use to find stuff. And I think you actually had some good picks that made it into the award lists.
Yeah, I miss being as well read in short fiction as I used to be.
Well, I'm curious, which beach are you using as your setting, or is it a made up beach for AJ?
No, it's not a made up beach. It's just south of the nice part of South Beach. I want to say it's like 9th Street Beach.
Okay. I was wondering if it was Key Biscayne. That was my beach.
So there are a couple of scenes at Key Biscayne, but remember that to get over to Bill Baggs, it's more expensive to get to Bill Baggs.
Yeah, you're talking about the tolls.
Yeah,
toll
yeah.
that you have to get in on Key Biscayne.
Yeah.
For some reason, my family, we would always go to Crandon Park if we do anything,
For some reason, all the Latinas in Miami would go to Crandon Park. That was the one, El Farolito and all that.
Oh, really? I didn't realize that. That's where my parents went to, and
Mine too.
I made a ritual. I would ride my bike to see the sunrise on New Year's and New Year's Day and Easter at Crandon. Last time I did it, I got eaten by mosquitoes. I forgot to bring off, which you should have proper planning for. So no, it sounds great. I hope AJ does well for you. Now, you got something else in the works right now?
I have a manuscript after that I've written. I haven't yet sent it to my agent because I've got some changes that I've already figured out need to be done. It's another middle grade book, but it's not in series with these first two books. It's about a non-binary middle grade kid. Oh, my battery's running low, so I might have to jump out and grab my charger in a minute or two.
No worries.
Yeah, it's about a non-binary middle grade kid, Cuban American kid, but living in South Carolina, who has just moved there, and while exploring their new surroundings, they find a hidden room in their school. Because I was running across a lot of YouTube videos of rooms in old houses and buildings that had been walled off for whatever reason, and I was fascinated by that idea. So they find a hidden room in their school, and they find in it a backpack from a kid from 1996, and there's a journal inside of it. And when they read up on this kid, she disappeared in 1996, and that's why nobody ever came looking for this backpack. And so they start writing in the journal as if it's their own, and it turns out that their words kind of travel back through time. And so she writes back, and they open up a dialogue. And so the protagonist is trying to solve her disappearance or prevent her disappearance, but unfortunately, the kind of people who would truck around with magical artifacts like books that you can write through time in are obviously not limited to just 1996. So what the protagonist doesn't realize they're doing is they're exposing themselves to the same danger that this girl was in 30 years ago.
No, when I heard about that, what clicked into my mind, and it took me a while to think about it, is this in any way a thematic sequel to The Substance of My Lives and The Accents of My Births, because also dealt with, disappearance, or if I remember right. If I'm wrong about that, please correct me.
Well, I mean, it's somebody last night talked about a tendency in my books to be historical, to have characters who are kind of connecting with past eras. So it's kind of like that, in that Substance of My Lives, The Accidents of Our Births features reincarnation. And in this case, it's not the protagonist's past life, it's a different entire person, but there is kind of that back and forth. And also both books feature, or both the novelette and this manuscript feature, queer protagonists. That's the challenge, is in this climate, it's difficult to to make a queer middle grade book sell. And that's a fight that I'm gearing up to fight, and hopefully it'll go well.
Yeah, unfortunately, yesterday didn't make it any easier, and I feel
No.
bad about that. So, but I hope the best of luck. So, no, it sounds great. So, one more question: any chance of you going back into short fiction, or is novels taking up most of your time these days? And there's no wrong answer.
I want to write more short stories. In fact, I recently wrote one for the Loose Lips reading series in Orlando that got a really nice reception there. So I'm going to try to polish it up and shop it and see if anybody wants it. And also, I decided for old time's sake to enter a Codex short fiction contest. So maybe I'll have some new short stories to shop around. It's for the past few years, novel writing has taken what bandwidth I had, but I have also in the last couple of years gotten a lot faster at writing. So I'm hoping that, and you know, the test will be if it actually works out or not, but I'm hoping that I will discover that I can be more productive than I have in the past. Because like I said, I wrote AJ Torres really fast, and I wrote this new manuscript also pretty fast as well. So I'd love to shop some short stories. It's nice it takes so long to put a book out. I'm more plugged into this science community than I am in the middle grade community. There isn't really, you know, there haven't really been people talking about my story, talking about my work there. And I kind of miss that, you know, is there a readership out there? Are people noticing? I noticed that when my book was a finalist for the Norton, there weren't really conversations about people's favorite Andre Norton finalists or not, you know, like there would be for novels, like there would be for short stories.
Hey, where can people find you on the interwebs?
So I am most active on Blue Sky, labyrinthrat.bluesky.social. And I am on Instagram if you really like memes and you really like middle grade stuff, because that's pretty much all that my Instagram is. And it's Jose Pablo Iriarte there, because I think somebody had already snagged Labyrinth Rat. And I have a Facebook author page that I'm really bad at updating. So you can follow it, but you won't see much there.
Well, I see it every now and
Ditto
then.
my website. I'm really bad at updating. Yeah.
Well, I can say about your Facebook. I think it's small, but it's mighty. I mean, I notice when you post there. Same with Blue Sky. So if you want some interesting insights on the field or the world, you should check Jose out. And anyway, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for Marku42 for coming up, and we wish you the best with AJ Torres. I know you're doing a book event tonight at the time of recording, and I hope it really goes well for you. The event last night was just perfect. It was great, and I'm hoping we wish you the best.
Well, thank you very much. I had a good time talking to you, and I appreciate it.
Juan, that was a great interview. You did a really great job.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I mean, sometimes when Joe and I get together, we'll talk about South Florida and how it was like back in the day. And, you know, we both now move for work reasons, more or less, in Central Florida, although he lives in Kissimmee and I live near the University of Central Florida, which is kind of East Orange County.
It's interesting you bring up South Florida, because on July 18th through the 20th at the Miami Beach Convention Center, they are holding Florida SuperCon with a lot of great guests, including my favorite guests that are going, Christopher Eccleston and Billy Piper. Many other guests going too, but that's where I'm concentrating. But here's the thing. On the 18th at 12:15 in rooms 203 to 205, I will be hosting The Future of Who, which is going to be a Marku42 panel with Dan Harris and Zion Kiros, and we are going to talk all about what's going to happen to Doctor Who, because, you know, the season ended and we're all up in the air. What's going to happen? What other ways of getting Doctor Who that are out there? Juan, you said you had a special interesting thing to say about
Well, no,
this.
it's just ironic. I'm going to be down there that weekend. It turns out one of my uncles is visiting, and I wanted to see him on the weekend, so I'll be taking the train, but I won't have time to go to SuperCon. Particularly, it's still in Miami Beach, right?
Yes, Miami Beach Convention Center.
Yeah, it's a drag. I mean, unless I could take a bus there, but at the same, I want to focus on. There's some things I got to do back in Miami before my uncle comes, and when my uncle comes, want to obviously at least have some dinner with him before heading back to Orlando.
All right. Well, we're going to miss you at Florida SuperCon. For more information, go to floridasupercon.com. All right. That's the end of our show, guys. Juan, thank you again for the interview with Jose.
It was fun to do. I mean, it was just an idea to come up with, and he had a book come out, and he had the time. He had just done a book launch party, although they misspelled captain in the cake, which we thought was funny. And also he got his stickers 15 hours after the book launch party that he wanted to use to promote.
All right, and that's all the time we have here on Mark Who 42. We hope you had a good time listening to this interview. We will be back in the near future. Bye, everyone.
You've been listening to Mark Who 42. Your hosts, Mark Baumgarten, Vicky Jakubowski, Juan Sanmiguel, and Zion Quiros. Mark Who 42's Universe is produced and directed by Mark Baumgarten. Copyright 2025.